Did you start taking Mounjaro recently and notice a rash or hives on your back or arms or legs? Stick around. You'll want to hear my story about what I did with it. I'm sharing all this with you, not in a way to deter anybody from starting Mounjaro. It's worked out great for a lot of people, but this is just the warning side. Maybe some things you should monitor if you're starting it out. So if you do have a adverse reaction like I did, you could possibly mitigate it and stop it from becoming an even worse issue. So for me, um, during the third week after my third injection, I noticed a small rash break out on my right forearm. Again, it was about the size of a quarter. Um, Nowhere near my injection site. The injection site I always took on the abdomen. So I just thought, I was like, hey man, it's probably just a bug bite, something like that. I don't think it's anything related to the medication. Not too worried about it. However, about 2 days later, um, it was getting a little bumpily, a little blistery, and I was like, this doesn't seem right. Let me make an appointment with my doctor and let's see what they have to think, just in case it is something more serious. So by the time I saw my doctor, this is like the fourth day since I noticed the rash, really, and uh, she thought that it was initially shingles. It was localized on one side of the body, really, at that point, and it was getting kind of bumpy. And we weren't too far outside of the 72-hour window of when I first noticed it. So she's like, okay, I'll put you on antivirals, but I want you to come back in 4 days to follow up with me. The picture you're seeing on the screen right now is what the rash looked like at that time, at that initial appointment with that first doctor, which would be about day 4 or 5 of having noticing the rash. At the follow-up appointment, the rash was significantly worse. Now, full disclosure, I had tried putting a couple things on it. I've tried putting Neosporin on half of it to see if that did anything. It didn't. Thought maybe it might have been a fungal or like a ringworm sort of thing. Or maybe it was a complication with that. So I put that on the other half. That didn't do anything. But the rash got noticeably more angry and larger. And when I woke up that morning to go to the follow-up appointment, so this would be like a full week after noticing the rash, I did have a blemish on my cheek, and my lip was getting a little bit puffy in the corner. So fair warning about the picture and about the post. It is kind of gross. But when the doctor was looking at this rash, she's like, okay, yeah, that's definitely not shingles. That's something else. We got to figure out what this is. So the kind of the blanket term when you have something like this, a big rash or breakout, when you don't really know the cause of it, it's going to get called contact dermatitis. And she prescribed me a antibiotic, cycle of antibiotics, and a topical steroid to apply to the rash. Now at this point, I had also started developing a slight rash on my right side, and like right on like the rib area. And my right leg also was starting to get a noticeable rash on it. And my other arm was getting a spot. My left arm was starting to get a spot on it that looked like what the other rash looked at like day one. So I was like, oh man, I hope this thing doesn't start blowing out too. And my doctor at that point, she's like, to be safe, don't do your when do you do your injections on Mounjaro? I was like, I typically do them on Sunday. She's like, okay, don't do it this Sunday. Let's go ahead and skip this Sunday. I'm going to make an appointment with you with our skin specialist on Monday. So you'll follow up with her and, hopefully we'll get this sorted out for you. Now, by Sunday, which would be like day 10 or 11, since the rash started, this thing was, really barking at me. It was itching. It was scratching. Sleep was really hard to come by. It was just really, really hard to deal with, really painful. And a new symptom that started noticing, this would be about day 8, 9, 10. Whenever I would eat anything, my lips would get puffy, especially the upper lip. And at first I was like, okay, I had something that had a little bit of spice to it. maybe that was it. Like, I don't think so. I had Chile to everything, so I was like, I don't think that's it. Uh, to troubleshoot that, I went back the next day, ordered the more or less the same thing, but without the spicy option. Still got a bit of a puffy lip, and I was like, huh, that's weird. Next day, I was like, I'm gonna go as bland as I can go. Did a turkey sandwich, still got a puffy lip, and I was like, okay, this is weird. I don't have any food allergies. I don't have any allergies that I really know of. Huh. Yeah, this is definitely a concern. Um, Again, sleep was terribly hard to come by. I was maybe getting 1 to 2 hours before I'd wake up, just absolutely itching out of my mind. And the ointment I was applying to it, I don't know if it was in my head, but it seemed to be making it worse. Um, Now, again, luckily, I already had an appointment for this was on a Sunday, so I had an appointment for the next day on Monday. But at this point, I really started thinking about what could this be, and I got to the point where I was like, again, I did not think it had anything to do with Mounjaro, and I honestly thought it was maybe a chemical burn from a laundry detergent, even though that doesn't really make sense because I've been using the same laundry detergent for about 2 years now. Um, but I was like, man, maybe this new bag that I opened, it was a bad mixing, or for whatever reason, this one new set of Tide Pods has something in it. So I went at like 3 o'clock in the morning to a 24-hour laundromat to do all my to start washing my laundry again in a very mild detergent. I got it and hoping that would do something, and tried sleeping on it, didn't help at all. Again, so now it's Monday morning. I go to my doctor's appointment, and I'll show a picture of what it's looking like now at this point, new picture. And at this point, she's like, yeah, it's not shingles. This is pretty intense. Let's put you on an oral steroid, just in case it had something to do with the detergent. She's like, I want you to, anything you're gonna wear or sleep on, wash with a very mild detergent. Everything in your house, your towels, whatever you're gonna like put against your skin, let's do that. And she recommended I use like aloe or unscented lotions to apply to it, just to keep it kind of moistened, so it didn't itch as much. Between either just maybe the time since the injection, the oral steroids that I was prescribed, at this point the rash had flattened out. It no longer was bumpy. It was flat. It was still itching, and the leg rash on the rash on my leg rather started to lighten up in color. So it was bright red the day of the appointment that I had with her, and at this point it started to go from like a bright red to a slight pink color. I did have a follow-up appointment with her 3 days after that, and it was really the night before the appointment. Again, I woke up after going to sleep for about 2 or 3 hours, woke up itching again. I was like, oh, man, this is terrible. And I spent a lot of time on Reddit and different forums trying to see what other experiences people have had. And because there is something that people generally refer to as like Ozempic skin, where they feel itchy all over, but a lot of them typically get away with just taking like a Claritin during the day, and that helps with that itchiness. But for me, it was far more intense than that. I did notice some other people were saying they had shingles, and again, my doctor initially thought it was shingles until it like jumped to the other side of the body. And it was only at that point I was like, what, I really think it's the Mounjaro. I think it's what caused the rash. That's when I put my chemical burn theory aside, and I was like, what, I think it was this new medication. Now, most of the time when people report a rash with this drug, it has to do with the injection site. And what's, and I think a lot of them also notice it very quickly. But I did find a number of accounts that were like, oh, hey, on week 5, that's when I noticed this, or when they titrated up from like 7.5 to 10 milligrams. They're like, okay, like me and my doctor realized I can't go past 7.5. After 7.5, that's when I break out with the rash. So What was kind of weird for me is that it happened at the entry level, 2.5 milligrams. And with that all being said, when I talked to my doctor this past week, we had a long discussion, and she said she had consulted with a number of other doctors within the building, and the general consensus was like, due to the fact that I had such a bad breakout that I was getting allergic reactions around my mouth, that could potentially lead to respiratory complications. It was decided that I'd be pulled off Mounjaro. And now this was tough to hear because it really was working for the first, before the arm broke out in a rash. Like, I was really happy with how I felt. I had nausea one day, but that was likely the result of not drinking enough water that day. But other than that, I really had no side effects, and it had a positive impact on curbing my appetite and helping me feel fuller faster. So in the 3 weeks, I lost 11 pounds, and I was really excited with that. And right now, at the time of recording this is this would have been the end of week 5. So I've been off the injection for over a week now, right? I missed last Sunday, so this is Sunday. Last Sunday is when I would have taken my first injection of 5 milligrams. But yeah, I could tell you there's a noticeable difference in how I felt this past week versus the week before in terms of hunger and satiety. So yeah, if it looks like I have to go back to the drawing board to figure out what I can do. If you're watching this, you probably have struggled with your weight as well, and it's hard. And there's so many different compounding issues or aspects of weight gain and weight control. And I don't know, I was really excited about starting and using Mounjaro, but yeah, it just turns out I'm one of the people that doesn't, long-term application or long-term use of it isn't going to work for me. Hopefully, if you're doing this, you aren't getting any of these side effects, but I hope that if you're starting this drug, if you're noticing a small rash, go to your doctor soon. Don't do what I did, because I noticed it at the end of week 3, but I still took my injection for the start of week 4. Maybe it would have been best if I would have stopped it at that point. So if you see any breakout, any rash, skip that next injection until you've talked to your doctor. I really think that would be advisable. The rash did cause a fair amount of pain, discomfort. Again, I was getting maybe 2-3 hours of sleep a day if I was lucky. It was embarrassing to have this big old thing on my arm, so I wasn't going around much. So like I said in my week 1 video, I think it's very important to track how you felt before and after. So like I said in the week 1, if you eat the same foods the week before you start Mounjaro versus your first week on it, that will give you a comparison. I think this goes to that fact that you should also just always track how you're feeling, any rashes, any things that you're changing. Try not to change a whole lot. Like, don't change your laundry detergents, don't change your soaps. Try to keep everything as consistent as possible, so anything that does flare up or break out, you should probably be able to point to, like, okay, maybe it's the medication. I wish I would have caught that sooner. I think, again, maybe if I would have skipped the week 4 injection, I wouldn't have had as bad of a rash. And who knows what happened, but I think ultimately I would have figured this would have happened at some time or another. But I hope you're able to avoid it. So, I'm taking some time to figure out what I want to do next. Talking with my doctor, who, the one that prescribed the Mounjaro, seeing what we could do. She recommended, I think, about Contrave. I'm looking into that. I don't know if any of you guys have had any positive or negative experiences. I'd love to hear it from you. But I know I got to do my homework to see if that might be a useful tool. So yeah, that's my story, guys. Again, I hope if you're starting this medication, your journey's a lot better. But yeah, that's all I got to say for now. Thanks for tuning in.